Daniel, I just wanted to ask you one quick thing about the technology of what you do with your air.
Yeah. Okay. Again, what my interest is working with all four elements and how I can optimize my experience with the elements, especially in a home. Because in a home, your air is usually 98% more polluted than the air that's outside, even if you live in a place with polluted air. Typically, that's mostly dust. And as a lot of us know, dust is dead skin cells, usually. And dead skin cells house dust mites, which are allergens. And so they're an underlying cause to a lot of the inflammation problems that people are experiencing in their lives, which lead to things like arthritis and cancer over time, just because all day they're breathing dead skin cells. In addition to spores from molds, yeasts, and things like that. So the first thing we want to do is bulk clean the air. We want to filter out all the solids. If you've ever seen light come through at an angle through a window and seen all the dust dancing in it, just think you're breathing that. Your lungs are the filter. You're filtering that air, and that stuff's being stuck in your lungs. So what you need is some kind of strategy for removing that. That's the first place that we start. And so what I'm using here is a high efficiency particulate air filter, or a HEPA filter. You probably heard the term HEPA. That means high efficiency particulate air filter. A couple times a week, leave it running in a room this size for an hour, 2 hours. You don't need to use it much. It's going to suck all that stuff out of the air extremely efficiently. You could do a huge house with 2 or 3 of these if you strategically position them. If you're curious about how air moves in your space, try lighting some incense and just watching the smoke and see where your air currents are, and then begin to strategically place your filters where you know you're going to get the most effect from them. So what I do is first draw air in through here, clean it, spit it out here. My skin brushes are over here. One of the things I've learned from skin brushing in the sun is that it releases a huge amount of skin cells, and if you do that into your space, you're really feeding the microbacteria, organisms like all the funguses and yeasts and dust mites in your space. You're feeding them skin cells. So what I do is I brush right here, feed it right in there. Another strategy of mine is to take a hydrogen peroxide spray from time to time and spray it right in there, because these filters are obviously full of all that dust, which means the filters themselves become a breeding ground, and we don't want to be sending that stuff out as well. So I'll just spray that down from time to time, kill off whatever's living, fry all the critters that are living in there.
Is this straight hydrogen peroxide?
This is a 3% hydrogen, food-grade hydrogen peroxide. I buy my peroxide in a 35% concentration and dilute it. If you do that, be careful with it. 35% will burn you. But you dilute it to 10 times, and and that's what I'm using here. When you're in a forest, when you're at a waterfall, when you're at an ocean, what's happening is ions, negatively charged particles, are being put out into the air, and that air for you is extremely healthy. And that's why the longest lived people happen, like our mountain people up high, where the ions are still fresh. Down here, what happens is we pollute the air and it becomes positively charged. It loses its electrical charge. It becomes positive, and we can't, there's no electrons available to us. So what I'm trying to do is put electrons or electricity back into the air. So that's what this does here. It's spitting out electricity. If you see inside there, there's a UV lamp, which is actually causing ozone to be formed. So this is putting out a lot of ozone in addition, which is an ion. So it's putting out ions of ozone, and which comes out and basically cooks off anything that's living in the air. Any positively charged particles, like smoke or dust, gets a negatively charged particle, attaches to it, and then drops it out of the air. What's happening here is that's coming out here. It's dropping things down, which are being sucked into here, and this is being spit back out. So what we're doing is creating like an airflow here, and cleaning the air and recharging it. This has an electrical plate inside of it.
Does that need to be replaced every...
This never needs to be replaced, it just needs to be wiped down. This will accumulate dust on its own too, so it's sort of also drawing dust in that's positively charged, and it's sticking to this plate.
What's that called? The device?
This is an ion generator. The ionic breeze is probably the one most people have seen because it's available on television.
Yes.
But there's many different models of ionic air cleaners. Even Walmart sells them now. They're really available. They're really getting cheap. And you just clean this, so there's no filter, unlike the HEPA filter, which you need to replace from time to time. Mm-hmm. This just slides back in. Turn it on. I leave it running pretty much 24 hours a day. This model here has a car adapter, so I can take it on long trips in the car. One of the things when you begin to notice, when you begin to use it, the experience in your nose and lungs is kind of like the experience of putting a 9-volt battery on your tongue. It's that feeling of the electricity, and you really begin to notice when you go places that don't have any ions in them, like office buildings, for instance, which tend to have the most dead, stale, positively charged air. And what you notice is people sort of nod off all day long because they need the electricity to stay awake. So this keeps my brain fresh. It keeps me fresh when I'm doing long drives. It keeps the room in the air in my room really clean. And I like when I enter into my space the smell of the ozone that builds up when I'm gone, because I know that's cooking off anything negative in my space.